Welcome to the Real Estate Puzzle Podcast, where we study and discuss fitting the pieces of the puzzle together to create unique solutions for unique properties.
I'm Cameron Rogers.
And I'm Jeff Klam. We are real estate developers and investors based in British Columbia, Canada. So we come at real estate from a Canadian perspective. Much of our content will be especially relevant to Canadians, but a lot of what we talk about can be applied in many other markets.
However, we both studied and worked in various parts of the United States as well. Plus, we have some international experience in real estate. So, as we talk, we will touch on other areas. Our goal is to educate you on how to invest in real estate beyond simple residential properties. Sometimes we interview subject matter experts to learn from them. In real estate
development and investing, the first thing you need to realize is that you don't know everything. So you can't be an expert on everything. So many things that Cameron understands, I'm not an expert in, but then again, I have some other things that I add. And so you need to network. You need to get the right realtors, consultants, appraisers, engineers, designers, and architects all on your team, construction managers, trades, everyone that you can add to your team so you can be successful.
Sometimes we share stories from our first-hand experiences dealing with real estate development and investment.
And sometimes we do case studies on specific properties.
Which is what we're doing today. Every property is unique in some way, but we look at properties that are more unique than others.
So for instance, you look at a condo, and if it's on the third floor or the fourth floor, it's going to look similar to something that's on the 14th floor or 13th floor. If you look at a subdivision, many homes are created with the same look. They might have slightly different colors or a little bit different of an aesthetic, but you're basically looking at certain properties that can be interchangeable.
So let's take a look at today's property. What are we looking for today, Jeff?
So as I was looking at some properties, we have a real estate agent that sends us a number of different properties in our area that we live in. And this property popped up, and it was interesting enough that we started to have a discussion about it. And then we went and viewed the property, and we continued to have discussion on it because it's interesting. So this is a one title. It's 4450 Stromberg Lane, and it has a portion of the land that's on farmland and a portion of the land, almost 50 acres, on hillside.
Okay, so let's get into it. If you're listening or on the screen, you're going to see we don't own the property. We're developers who are looking for properties. We're not realtors. We're not trying to sell you any property here. We're just walking through this interesting property to explain how you can analyze a property for possible purchase and development. The principles we'll talk about here would be applicable to various kinds of various properties that may be similar to this. In fact, we saw a similar property in Mission. There was differences there. There was a number of titles in that case. It was a different kind of situation, but there's a lot of similarities to that property in Mission, BC, as opposed to this one in Abbotsford, BC. So, okay, so let's see. Let's get at the details here. You got the listing, Jeff?
Yeah. So this property has two zonings on one title, and it has a railroad that bisects the two. So it has 67.7 acres on just one title, 18 acres of farmland, which is in the ALR. We'll talk about that a little bit later, and it's zoned A2. And then there's the balance of the property, 49.7 acres, goes up the hillside. And so the opportunity here is development, some kind of additional use for the hillside property. And what makes it unique is you're not going to find a farmer that wants to buy hillside that they can't make money on, and you're not going to find a developer that necessarily wants farmland. So when we looked at this, because it's going to be unique because you're going to have to add titles and split titles and do a number of different things to make this a useful title or a useful development. And so as we look at this property, this is just a rough estimation of where the title sits on a picture with the farmland on below there. So you can see that the title goes up and it's pretty steep there. There's a different view. And so as we look at many different items here, we can see that the title has the green in the ALR and then the hillside. And then we can see that there are some other access points. And so we'll talk about those specifically later, but the property does have a number of opportunities for access, and the current access is Stromberg Lane that gets you right to the ALR point, to the agricultural land, but the hillside does not currently have good access. It has some trails that run through it, but not that you could get equipment or cars to that part of the land. So as we were looking at the mapping system, so we're utilizing the local city mapping systems. We are able to look at what kind of water course and creeks there are on the property, and if that is useful information to us. And so here in British Columbia, we have to be careful on the watershed, water course, and as well as topography. So we look at how steep some of these slopes are, and one aspect of that is there's potential opportunity in great views. As you put homes higher up, you're able to have beautiful, beautiful views of the mountains to the north. But building and getting equipment to build and put foundations could be a little bit interesting on this property.
Yeah,
and
so this map, I was going to go back to the topog. I'm just going to explain what that topog map is. The redder areas on the topog map indicate where the topog lines are closer together, and so you end up with, you can see a lot of it's quite red, which indicates the lines are very close together, which means it's quite steep slope, which is consistent with what we saw on the actual site when we visited it. But you can see the farmland portion is the white area on the north side of the railway tracks. It's dead flat. There's no topog lines, or maybe one topog line running through it. So it's understanding slopes is really important. Anything over about 30% is going to be considered undevelopable. It's not safe for development. There may be exceptions for that. Sometimes you can build a wall or create a terrace with concrete blocks or something, or retaining walls. But in general, this property has quite a bit of slope. However, if you look to the property to the right, which is actually owned by the city, the slopes there are a lot less severe, and it's a lot more buildable. And Jeff, you mentioned mapping, city mapping. So
yeah, and so as you look at different mapping, we look at. Yep. So that was from the city mapping, and then this is from just a hiking app or site, and this is called Gaia, and we can see that there's actually some hiking trails through the area. They do start in our title that we're looking at, but this just gives you a different view than the previous slide. And so sometimes it's easier to see different colors or different things, or other things will pop out at you as you look at different sites and different maps. So it's important to use as many tools as you can to learn.
The city mapping, which they call a GIS mapping, a lot of municipalities have a GIS system available online, but it's got so many layers and so much information in it that it can load really slow. So sometimes we'll just pull our phone out of our pocket, pull up the Gaia app or a geocaching app or another mapping app, and we can see a lot of the information we want to see along with our location on the property, where we're standing relative to the map, which of course the city mapping doesn't provide you because it's not tied into your location, where your phone tells you where you're at on the GPS, right? So that's why we sometimes will use use third-party apps or like GaiaP to see topography, see we can look at aerial photography easier on some of these other apps. Whereas when you're out on the site with city mapping, it takes forever to load. Even on the home computer, it takes forever to load in your office. So it's just easier to use a third-party app sometimes.
So,
but of course,
you
those
can
don't have all
see
the utilities, etc.
part of this is yeah. So that's that flat area that we see on the mapping, and so we know part of the topography of using drones and satellite shots. It's all important to understand what is the potential of the site you're looking at. So
So this
another
actually is
aspect,
drone footage, right? That's
what's
your drone
interesting
footage,
about
Jeff?
this is the zoning and the dual zones. That was the drone shot, and then moving into the zoning here. So if we add that in there, that would be about the title that we're looking at.
With the red around it. Yeah.
And so part of it is in the ALR, and part of it's in RR, which is rural residential.
Yeah, outside the LR.
So we wanted to give you a little bit more discussion about.
So Jeff, you want to tell us what the ALR is?
So it's a provincial designation only in British Columbia, and it is recognized for a priority use as farming. So there are some non-agricultural uses, but they are restricted, and it's approximately 4.6 million hectares of agriculturally suitable land. One of the very interesting things about this is the Agricultural Land Reserve, or ALR, it just comprises only 5% of BC's total land base. So when you talk about the best land that's available for farming, it's really not much, but BC wants that to be utilized for food production, and so it's important to follow these rules.